Welcome back, everybody. Well, this is the first video in a while. I apologize for not getting something up quicker than this, but we moved from the Pacific Northwest here to just south of Knoxville, Tennessee, in eastern Tennessee. Beautiful area, beautiful weather, some allergies I wasn't aware of. But all in all, everything is kind of back to normal in a way. The music room here is pretty much set up. I've got some issues yet I'm working out, but thank you all for being here and taking some time for a video. And it's been a while in coming. I bet it's been 6 weeks. So we'll try to get back to normal here and do one a week if I can. But I have some new things to talk to you about, some interesting things, and some new records that I picked up here locally, and one that new reissue that just came in has got some very interesting history to it, pretty complicated. So let's get into it. Again, thank you for being here. If you like what you hear, hit the like button. It helps more than you know, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. Again, this channel might be maybe a little different. There are some great folks doing some jazz videos here on YouTube, and I hope I can add to what they're doing and bring some information to all of you. And when I do these, I learn a lot too from the research on the recordings to the videos that my other colleagues here are doing. So let's just start with a few things. It's a new record I just got last week. I haven't listened to it yet. The reissue I haven't listened to. And that is Wes Montgomery, Smokin' at the Half Note. I think this is one of the most underrated records. When you see these lists for, the top 10 records that you need to have in your collection or how to get into jazz, this would be fit in both categories. I don't see this on those lists, but it really should be. It's really a record that broke some ground, and especially in the jazz guitar world. Wes Montgomery, if you don't know about Wes Montgomery, find out. He's an amazing player and was an influence for so many people from Indianapolis. One of three brothers. They did some recordings together. And recorded for a number of labels, made a lot of records for Verve, went on to A&M, where they did a little more commercial stuff, and then unfortunately Wes died in 1968. So what a player. But I'm going to talk about this record a little bit. I have an original Blue Note copy of this, which I have listened to, and it's really, really good. I haven't listened to the new copy yet because it's just been a day or two since I've got everything where I want it here in the room. But I'm going to listen to it tonight, and I'm sure it's going to be great. It's done by Analog Productions, 180 gram vinyl, the whole bit. You can see information on YouTube here about the quality of the record and the jacket and everything. I don't tend to do that kind of thing, but I'm really excited to hear this. The version that I have, and that is still available today. This will go out of press soon. It's probably a big seller already. It'll come back, but it's going to go out of press. So if you haven't ordered the new version of this, I would do that. My old Verve, I have to tell you, it's a very clean copy, and boy, does it sound good. But just some interesting facts about this. I have some notes, so if I'm looking down here, it's very complicated, this recording session. Its build is Smokin at the half note with the picture of the club neon sign in lower New York in the Village. Some great recordings have been done there. This is Verve V6-8633. It was recorded back on June 24th, I believe, I want to believe 64, if I remember right. I might have that wrong. But Smokin at the half note. So this record is not a totally live record. The first cut is a 13-minute blues, and if you listen to this, you need to listen to it a few times because some of the chord substitutions that Wes plays on here is just amazing. And I may get some of this history wrong. It's very complicated. I'm going to try to put a link to an article, I think, in the Jazz Guitar magazine that goes through the chronology of this record. It's convoluted, and I'll try to explain to you what it is. This whole record was not done live. Two of the cuts, No Blues, the first blues, and If You Could See Me Now, was recorded on the 24th of June. But the other cuts, and they're Unit 7, 4x6, and two other cuts, I can't remember the name of them now, but they're What's New, I think. And they were recorded in the studio a few days later and put in the record. I put in this record, even though they're not live. From what I understand, those tunes were recorded live on the same night or the night after. But for some reason, Verve didn't put those live sessions in. The other four cuts were done in the studio. They're great, and they sound great, but from what I read and heard, the live versions were just great too, and they were smoking, as you'll hear if you own this record or if you buy this record. Interestingly enough, the recorded versions were done a few days later at Van Gelder's, and that's why they sound so good, I guess. But shortly after this, Wes signed a contract with A&M Records, which was produced. Stuff was produced by Creed Taylor, and these are the famous records that they're kind of commercial. California, Dreamin', just a bunch of records that were done on A&M. They're nice, kind of background music. Klaus Ogerman did some of the arrangements. I think Sebesky might have done some arrangements, I'm not sure. But they're the precursor to that CTI sound. And so what they did is they took these studio recordings and one or two, maybe more, and Ogerman did some arranging, some orchestra arranging, and overdubbed those recordings, and they came out, on some of those A&M titles. Why they did this, I have no idea, but they did. Later on, they were released on a version on CD called the 70 or the 76 Verve small group recordings. This is available on CD. I'm not sure it's available on vinyl. I have it on CD. In fact, it was done on a Japanese CD, which sounds really good. And they took the arrangements that Ogerman did out, so you're hearing just Wes and the trio. In fact, I think that this record might have originally been called the Wynton Kelly Trio with Wes Montgomery. There's a crazy history to this. I'm going to try to link that article to this video. But check it out. Nonetheless, this is one of the records I think that you all ought to have in your collection. It's an influential record. It's just a swinging live session. Some of the best live playing, anywhere. And of course, we've got this Wynton Kelly Trio, Wes Montgomery. Again, a lot of people think this is a Wes Montgomery record, but it's really Wynton Kelly Trio with Wes Montgomery. They're dual named on here with Paul Chambers and Jimmy Cobb. They're essentially the rhythm section of Miles's quintets back during that period as well, a little later. Recorded in June of 1965, and then the other recordings were done in September of that year. So there's a lot of crazy history to this record. Check it out and enjoy it. And I'm sure this new version that I'm going to listen to tonight is just going to be smoking at the half note. A couple other new records that I listened to recently that I picked up here in Tennessee. It's another Pablo called Jousts, and it's Oscar Peterson with a bunch of trumpet players, Harry Edison, Eldridge, and Dizzy, and John Faddis. What they did is Grants took some recordings of other Pablo records and put them into a compilation of Oscar and trumpet players, and it's called Jousts. They don't play together. There's 4 different recordings on here. They were done some in L.A., New York, and London during the 1970s. I made some notes here. Yeah, in '74, and this was released in 1978. But it's interesting, to have all of this on one record. You don't have to get up and change records. This is a German pressing, a Pablo German pressing, and boy, I'll tell you what, it's clean as a whistle. It's a good vinyl, good sounding, clean vinyl, and you can kind of tell it's a German or a European record because the jacket is a little thinner. A lot of European records have thinner jackets, but jacket's in good shape. I think I paid $12 for this. So if you see this around, you know me and Pablo records. I love the Pablo stuff, and for the most part, they all sound really, really good. Jousts, some of the greatest trumpet players of all time. Bill Evans in Montmartre on Milestone Records. This is you can see it's a promo copy, so theoretically it should sound a little better. It does sound pretty good. Milestone, their recordings were good. They weren't great, but they were good. But this is a very underrated Bill Evans record that is seldom seen, and it's got Eddie Gomez and Marty Morell on here. And it was done in 1969 in Denmark at the Jazz House. Good recording, a lot of energy. Evans, I have a feeling maybe wasn't at his best on there's a couple tunes on here, and I can't remember which one it is. It might be How My Heart Sings and How Deep Is the Ocean. I think the tempo's a little fast for me anyhow. You never know. Evans might have not been his best that night, but the rest of these tunes are really good, and it's a good recording. I think Evans did about 6 records from Milestone back during this period, and they're all pretty good if you can find them. But this is Bill Evans, Jazz House with Marty Morell and Eddie Gomez. Really, really interesting and kind of an underrated record. Next to last is an old record. This is Sonny Stitt It's a reissue called All God's Children Got Rhythm, and there's a lot of great players on here, featuring Bud Powell, J.J. Johnson on the Prestige label. This was reissued back, back in in the 60s. The old Prestige label. These are all old 78 recordings. The recordings, they're not great, but, they're early Sonny Stitt where he was not, playing like he did, as maybe those of you who bought the Sonny Stitts on Record Store Day a couple weeks ago, listened to him. He's not at that level, but it was an early recording of Sonny Stitt with JJ and Bud Powell, Curly Russell on bass, Max Roach on drums, Nelson Boyd on bass, and of course John Lewis on piano. Really a great rhythm section. And an interesting historic record, Prestige 7248. Why they remastered these for stereo, I have no idea. I wish that had just left them in mono. But these are recordings done in 1949, 1950. They were originally done on 78s. But, an interesting record, an early Sonny Stitt. Stitt made a lot of records. And turned out to be one of my favorite players. Speaking of great records, here's a record on Prestige that John Coltrane did. This is an OJC copy that came out, under the OJC name back in about 1990, I think. And it was a recording called "The Last Train," and it says here, "The Last Train" is appropriate title since it represents the final riches from the Prestige vault of the famous session which John Coltrane was featured in the 1950s. Van Gelder in Hackensack. What a great record. And man, does Coltrane play on this. And you know who else plays great on this is Donald Byrd. Donald Byrd, during this period in the late 50s, early 60s, boy, he played so great. I'm not a big fan of Donald Byrd's work after about 1966 and on, 65, 66, but boy, prior to that, he played great. Red Garland plays great on here too. Paul Chambers, Earl May on bass, Louis Hayes on drums. Louis Hayes is a great drummer. I had a couple of the Cuts Art Taylors on here. Both are great drummers. It's a great rhythm section. And I have to tell you, I listened to this 3 times in the last couple of days, and Coltrane plays so good on this. He plays a version of Lower Come Back to Me. It sounds like giant steps at that tempo. And then, Come Rain or Come Shine does a great swinging version, a great version of Soldier. There's only 4 tunes on here, so there's a lot of stretching out on here. If you could find this, The Last Train, Prestige. This is the OJC version. Shirts Around, very underrated record. But this, came out of the Prestige vault where we all probably know Lush Life and some of the later, The Believer, I think, and Black Pearls was on Prestige. But at any rate, really great record if you can find it. This is the OJC version on using the old Prestige black and yellow label. Great record. One of my favorite Coltrane records now. That's right up there with some of the stuff on Atlantic. If you can find us, pick it up. Anyhow, that's about it for today. If you have any questions, comments, you can leave them below, and we'll get back and do another video probably next week. And again, I apologize for the lack of videos in the last 6 weeks. But those of you who have moved these kind of records and equipment, let alone a house and other stuff, I think you can understand. But we're here and things are good. And thank you all for being here, and we'll check you again. Until next time, bye-bye.